In 1881, in the southeast corner of the 21-year-old Arizona Territory, the U.S. Army, located at Fort Huachuca, had sent out a routine patrol in the Mule Mountains, looking for tracks of the Chiricahua Apaches. As a result, Bisbee, a town with a colorful past in southeastern Arizona, is now an attractive tourist destination with its shops and restaurants. It is a cultural center hosting visual art events, annual film and blues festivals, and it has become an appealing retirement location. While the patrol was searching for water near one of their stops at the base of Castle Rock, an interesting ore deposit was found by Scout Jack Dunn. Due to military duty, Dunn was unable to file the claim, so he arranged for George Warren to file the claim. Warren's image appears on the Great Seal of Arizona. Following that, many other prospectors started searching the area. The original claim at Castle Rock was not the best ore deposit. It was when ore with a purity of 30% copper was found in the glory hole opened up by the Copper Queen mine that many other mining companies moved into town. Successful mining required investment. Smaller holdings were bought up by larger companies. They in turn were acquired by Phelps Dodge by 1947. Bisbee started to grow. Houses were built on the hillsides, one on top of another. Even in the early 1900s, they were ramshackle. Although the streets are paved now in Brewery Gulch, many houses still cling to the side of the hills. One old cabin still exists, with one modern feature. On top of Castle Rock, the old design approach is still used for garages. Since Bisbee was a frontier town, frontier justice applied. The first miners were the prospectors. Soon followed by the tramp miners who moved from mine to mine. They were single and ready to party when not digging. For their recreation, the Brewery Gulch provided saloons and brothels. Stairs on the right lead to prostitute cribs. Brewery Gulch is quieter now, but the St. Elmo Bar has been operating since 1902. As the larger companies bought out the small claims, the management wanted to encourage family men for a more stable workforce. The big companies, particularly Phelps Dodge and the Calumet and Arizona Mining, built hospitals. libraries, the first and second of which burned down, schools, churches. The wives of many of the company managers were active in eliminating many of the brothels and saloons, or at least keeping them away from the polite parts of town. They were ahead of the general prohibition movement in the U.S. A YWCA, now an apartment building. And YMCA, now a hotel. The Copper Queen Hotel is still a landmark. The Bisbee Mining and Historical Museum occupies the Phelps Dodge headquarters building, where the miners were being paid in 1914 in this image. Phelps Dodge had its own mercantile store, but miners had their own houses and their choice of other stores. Despite these improvements, Bisbee continued to suffer from floods due to water rushing down the steep sides of the canyons, and from fires that also destroyed homes and businesses. As the town of Bisbee grew, suburbs like Lowell, South Bisbee, and Warren were created, following the City Beautiful planning approach that had been used for Washington, D.C. The Calumet and Arizona Mining Company developed the planned town of Warren in 1905, seen in this plat of the town. It included unique features like electricity, water, and sewage connections to every home, not just these managers' houses seen on Vista Boulevard. As well, there were educational and recreational opportunities. The development of the town can be seen in these old photos. The CNA head office was located in Warren. The building is now the City Hall of Bisbee, which has taken in the former suburbs. On the right side of this picture is the baseball diamond, which is the oldest continually operating baseball field in the USA. Although Phelps Dodge was generally a good employer, the IWW, the Industrial Workers of the World, known as the Wobblies, appeared about the time the USA was entering World War I. With the war as an excuse, Sheriff Harry Wheeler was asked by Phelps Dodge to deputize 2,000 townspeople belonging to the business-oriented Citizens Protective League and the Bisbee Workmen's Loyalty League to round up striking workers at gunpoint. The 1,300 men rounded up by these vigilantes were marched to a cattle train and taken to New Mexico. Although 21 Phelps Dodge executives and Sheriff Wheeler were ordered arrested by the U.S. Department of Justice, the U.S. Supreme Court later decided that the federal government did not have the power to enforce the rights of the deportees. Arizona never initiated criminal proceedings. By the 1920s, Bisbee, with a population of 20,000 or more, had become the largest population center between St. Louis and San Francisco, with the finest trolley system in the country, linking Warren and Bisbee. Some men made their fortune without digging out copper. Joseph Muheim arrived in town from Switzerland in 1887 to work as a bartender in his uncle's saloon, but he eventually became one of the movers and shakers of the town. He owned the Muheim Block on Brewery Gulch, containing the brewery and the stock exchange. He owned the Pythian Castle, home to one of the fraternal orders of the time, the Knights of Pythias, and various theaters and restaurants. Cultural activities that were not generally available on the frontier. His house, situated at the top of one of the steep hills, is open for tours. It is a measure of his status at the time. Behind the Copper Man, another Bisbee landmark, is the Art Deco County Courthouse, built in 1929, when the Cochise County seat moved from Tombstone to Bisbee. Mary Rosano, whose single name was Mary Hull, is a friend who retired to the family ranch about 9 miles south of Bisbee. She talked to me about growing up in Bisbee in the 1930s and 40s.
I was born in California and brought here to the ranch when I was 5 months old. So I'm really basically a native of being here, but not quite totally.
Now your family had owned this ranch for a long time.
Yes, as best we can find out, we think it was around about the turn of the century. But that was where my father was born, was also in that house. And my sister was born in it down here. I went to Lowell School for 8 years, and then 4 years of high school at Bisbee High School.
What kind of memories do you have from the Lowell School?
Oh, it was a wonderful school. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it was an eclectic school. We had a lot of people who came from Yugoslavia and foreign countries to work in the mines. And so we had kind of a melting pot of people that we played, that as children we played with. There's, of course, a lot of Hispanics. And I guess I never realized as a youngster that we were the minority. Oh, it was marvelous, little Main Street. It was all of the little stores and everything were open. Penny's was a wonderful place to go. And, of course, the Phelps Dodge had their mercantile store there. And that was a big business. The Lyric Theater was where all the kids went on Saturday afternoon. Phelps Dodge Corporation was a great place for taking care of the community. They really did see to it that things were good.
As the rich ore was taken out, the companies had to find new methods to extract ore from remaining sources. This led to open pit mining. The Sacramento Hill became a hole in the ground. The Lavender Pit can still be seen from the lookout on the highway south of Old Bisbee. Eventually, in 1975, the copper ran out. Some people had seen the writing on the wall and started developing the town as an artistic center. Carrie Gustafson, the director of the Bisbee Mining and Historical Museum, was very generous with her time, telling me how the town changed from a mining town to an artistic and cultural center.
70s, you had various people here in Bisbee foresaw this closure and foresaw the impact on Bisbee. And in the mid to late 60s, you already had the beginnings of historic preservation and arts creation as possible futures for Bisbee. Tourism was looked as an economic vehicle, but with their interest in preserving the town for visitors and encouraging the arts, that's exactly the direction that they started and we continue with today. People wanted to come here, and it was easy to come here when you can buy a house for $200. Now you can buy a house for $120,000 or $200,000. The same house, actually, with not much done on it. But that was kind of influences that led to what people refer to as the hippie movement coming here. But at the same time, you had a core of artists moving in. It was a merging of people that said, wait a minute, this is our community and we love it. And people coming in and saying, wait a minute, we like this community. And they actually did work together. But we did have a really kind of neat core of the sort of hippie artists, a few of which we still have today. And they're very, very community oriented and very active and also astoundingly good.
Jeff Hearn, the owner of the Single Tree store on Main Street, moved to Bisbee in 1972 with his wife to take advantage of the low rents and to follow their dream of establishing their own business.
My name is Jeff Hearn, and my late wife and I moved here in 1972 and opened a store the next year in '73. I don't object to being called a hippie anymore. They were good people, and it was my wife's idea. Her basic motivation in life was to not have anybody breathing down her neck. She wanted to own her own property and own her own business and not have anybody dictate to her, and that was the theme of her life, and right. that sent us in the direction that we took. Mm-hmm. And my wife, her parents were enthusiastic Republicans, and they lived on a sailboat down in Mexico, and they would go, beachcombing, and they made their own beer and sailing around in their sailboat and fishing. And my wife and I went to the store every day and worked every day, and they were the solid citizens and we were the hippies. So explain that.
The Central School Project in Bisbee is a cooperative of artists who bought the old school building. Artists rent space for studios, and exhibits and classes are held there in the gallery, named after Ida Power, one of the founders of the artistic movement in Bisbee. When I went to the old Central School, I met a friendly artist in the parking lot who invited my wife and me up to her studio. And what's your full name, Sam?
Sam Wolcott.
Sam Wolcott.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And my husband, Poe Dismuke, he's a sculptor, and we have a gallery on Main Street that just shows our work.
Okay.
Although we invited a young artist, and we had an opening last weekend of his work. So if you go in there today, you'll meet someone in the gallery and get to see some big, beautiful painting.
Following her suggestion, I visited the gallery owned by Sam and her husband on the main street on a quiet weekday morning. In recent years, Bisbee has become an attractive tourist destination. If you're looking for a fitness workout, one option is the great Bisbee 1000 stair climb in October. As you can see, there are lots of stairs to choose from, and they have been a necessity since the beginning. The Bisbee Mining and Historical Museum provides an excellent display of mining techniques over the years, from using hand tools by candlelight to pneumatic drills using carbide lamps. Or take an underground tour of the Copper Queen Mine. The combination of the tour through the Queen Mine and displays at the Bisbee Mining and Historical Museum give the visitor a realistic feel for working in the mine. Visitors sign in to the tour, or brass in, as miners did to ensure no one is left in the mine. But preparing to enter the mine includes better equipment, like electric lights instead of candles. Doug Graham, the mine manager, permitted me to tour the mine and to have a close-up view of it.
I'm the Queen Mine Tour Manager. I've been at the Queen Mine Tours for almost 10 years now. I came out of Kirchner Caverns. I was born here in Bisbee. My family's been here since, it was 1881 or 1883. They were coming out of Utah and they were headed into Mexico. And my great-great-grandfather just stopped off here in Bisbee to go work in the mine. I did work underground. My first underground job was at Silverton, Colorado. Dad worked underground here. I was too young. It had shut down by 75.
Similar to the mine trains on display at the museum, the tours enter the mine on trains. Soon, the only light is from your electric lamp, until you come to the superintendent's desk. And then the stope where the mining is done. At the stope, there is an example of a square set made of pre-cut timbers to permit the miner to work overhead with their pneumatic drills. An interesting and informative tour. Bisbee, as described by 3 of the locals.
Bisbee is truly a cute community. It's got just a wonderful feel to it when you walk around.
Bisbee is a good place to live, if it suits you. They say that Bisbee pulls some people in and pushes other people out.
There are more important things, like a close-knit community, you know, just beautiful nature right out your door, you know, just lots of great community organizations and friendly people, and a library with wooden tables and that kind of, we had such a fantasy of our perfect little toy town, and we never thought we'd find it, but we think Bisbee is just that.
Bisbee, the town that came back to life. It avoided the ghost town fate of many mining towns, due to the commitment of far-sighted individuals who loved their town. And so do I.